Good evening and welcome to Between the Lanes episode number 151. I'm Ron.
I'm Shane.
And we're here to talk slot cars again. So again, welcome to episode number 151. This is the start of our third year of doing Between the Lanes. You can find us on YouTube, Slot Racers, the channel, 151 episodes, some special episodes, some how-to videos over there. Find us on Facebook, Between the Lanes is the page. We have race results from the last 2 weekends. I'm short a couple from this last weekend, but they haven't put stuff up. And this is kind of a, I don't know, this show is kind of taking care of 2 weeks in one show.
We're a bi-weekly thing now, aren't we?
Yeah, kind of, because there's not a lot of racing going on quite yet. Oh, not a lot of stuff to talk about, but we do have some topics for tonight, so we'll get there in a little bit. So, as soon as it flips over. Okay, so the East Coast Flexi Car Series was at Fast Tracks, Bally, Pennsylvania last weekend, and it was their championship race. Now, they haven't put up who won the championship, so I can't tell you that this week, but we will next week or the next show. So, stock car class, Matt Bruce was the winner. Bobby Davis was second. Adam Chaya was third. And then in LMP, Bobby Davis was the winner. Randy Core second, and Adam Chaya was third, again. So good job to all the podium finishers there. The AWRA was at Tennessee Valley Speedway a week ago. In the Legends class, Nick Ferris was the winner. Colin McGee was second, and Brian Gibson was third. And then in stock car, Nick Ferris was the winner. Peanut was second, and Bill Pinch was third. I don't know if that's the right picture. And then, let's see here. Okay. Well, let's go back because this picture, okay. So this picture was the Legends. Nick Ferris was the winner. Colin McGee was second. Brian Gibson was third. And then in the stock car, it was Nick Ferris, Peanut, and Bill Pinch. And then in Sportsman, it was Nick Ferris pulling off the sweep with Peanut second again and Randy in third. There was no last name for Randy. So, and then we go to Turn and Burn for the Mid-South race 2 weeks ago. In the stock car class, it was Shane Parent, the winner. Ralph Thorne second. Russ Martin was third. And then in the GTP class, Shane pulled off his second win of the day. James Merriman second. Russ Martin third. And then in the 4.5 stock car class, Bobby Beachman was first. James Merriman second. Russ Martin third for his third place podium of the day. And then in LMP, we had Ralph Thorne, your winner, Bobby Beachman second, and James Merriman was third. Okay, Retro Tokyo raced last weekend, and in the Can-Am Plus class, Tebu was the winner, Yuji was second, Kamo was third. In Can-Am, it was the same three suspects on the podium, except Tebu was the winner again, Kamo was second, Yuji was third. And then in Coops, Tebu pulled off the sweep by winning Coops. Kamo was second, and Suji was third. Then in the no pictures section, F2000 raced at Alpha Raceway last weekend. At Group F, Mark Mazurek was the winner. Or no, Majinsky, I'm sorry. Steve Schneider was second, Jim Rapati third. Group 12, Steve Schneider was the winner, Jim Rapati second, Jim Mayer was third. Cobalt 12, Al Harley was your winner, Steve Schneider second, Jim Rapati third. Group 27, Al Harley was the winner again, the only double winner of the day. Paul Pfeiffer second, Steve Schneider was third. And then Group 7, Paul Pfeiffer was the winner, Jim Rapati second, Jim Mayer in third. And then at the Ono Slot Car Club, Ontario, Canada, GTP, John Waller was the winner. Nate T was second. Scott B was third. DTM, the winner was John S., with John W. second and Nate T. in third. So that was our winning race results for the last 2 weeks, minus a few. And that leads us to Shane's Q.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
All right, so this Sunday, which is the 29th of August, East Coast Flex.
Last weekend of the month.
That's right. East Coast Flexi Series is at Speed Zone. It's the Garden State race. And as far as I know, they're running GTP and I believe LMP. And if not LMP, they're running stock cars. But anyway, both classes are to be run on one of the two flat tracks. Last I read, it was undecided if they would run on the World's track or not, but they were hoping to, but I never seen a hardcore decision. The F2000 Wing Car Nats is at Chicagoland Raceway this weekend. And, excuse me, the Gator Retro Racing region is at the Raceway.biz in Melbourne, Florida. September 5th, the only event I have on the calendar for that weekend is East Coast Flexi Series. Starts their new season at the Race Place in New Jersey. The weekend of the 12th, we've got the Southern Retro Rumble at Fast Eddie's, Pinellas Park, Florida. That's a retro race. Mid-South is at Archdale. BRS is at Mark's Model World. The weekend of the 19th of September, Retro East is at Speed Zone, and the Flexi Palooza is still scheduled and on, as far as I know, at Downriver in Lincoln Park, Michigan. And the last weekend of September, which is the 26th, the Gator Retro Racing region is at Fast Eddie's. Penn, Ohio starts their series off at Northeast, up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and the East Coast Flexi Series is at Fast Tracks, Valley, Pennsylvania, and the Dave Gehring Memorial is at Thaser Raceway on the 26th. And then also that week, the 23rd of September through the 28th, is the USRA Wing Car Nats at Chicagoland Raceway. So that's what's
There's
coming.
also one more race. I don't know if you have it in your notes or not.
Okay.
I think it's the North Carolina Flexi warm-up race. The
Okay.
North Carolina Flexi
Oh, that's right.
Series. It'll be at Concord at Randy's.
What date?
The 26th of September.
Okay, so I'm writing it down.
If they'll run production, GT12, and JRL.
Okay, flat track.
So
Race.
memory production race will be Israel rules.
Yep.
And GT12 and JRL are based off of USRA rules.
Right. Okay. It's on the counter, so we'll mention that the next few shows before they have the race. All right, so then in other news or events, Southern California Retro Racing Association has postponed their Summer Western Classic race to possibly the fourth week of September. I guess things are kind of pretty serious out there in Southern Cal or Orange County or whatever county they're in.
There were some wildfires going on or whatnot.
Well,
There was
this
like 130.
yeah, well, this is being postponed because of the virus. So
Gotcha.
the race was supposed to happen, I think, this weekend, but it's been postponed. So in other news, as soon as it flips over, Piranha Speedway, which is Richard Canute's new raceway out in Westminster, California, is looking better and better every day. There's a picture of the entrance and exit. I guess the doors are automatic, so like when you, it's like a grocery store when you, yeah, it opens for you.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And
Did you ever go to the old Hobby Max building?
where? No. I was only
Their back door was automatic, and it was nice.
okay.
Yeah, that's what made me think about that.
And then their King track, which is the Tracy Brown's G21 Black Widow track, is what's there at Piranha, and it's This photo is it's set up, except one section was left to put on it, but that's what they posted a few days ago. Building looks great. Track looks great. Looks like the lighting's great. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a first-class racing facility. They'll have a drag strip, and they also will have the road course that was at Frank Sarkala's up in Northern California that Scale Nats was held on a couple years ago. So, yeah, a couple years ago. Is that right? Yeah.
2 years?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they were in so
California, and then they went to North Carolina, right? Yeah, so 2 years ago. So, actually, almost 3 years ago, because we didn't have one Nats this year. So,
yeah.
So it'll be those 3 tracks, and then it'll be a good place for the California guys to go race. And then the Pilsen Czechoslovakia track, the King track there, which is the world's fastest King track, has been removed, and it's coming to America. It's going to wind up at Mid-America Buffalo Grove, probably sometime in the next month or so. It's been disassembled. It's got to get wrapped up and then packed onto a sea container, and then it comes to America, where then it'll be trucked to Chicago, unloaded, and set up at Buffalo Grove. And Pilsen has replaced the King with a new flat track that was built by Giannis. And there's a picture that they posted today. And I kind of like that flat track. It's not overly huge, and I don't think it's overly technical. And I know,
I'll check that out too. It looks pretty nice.
I mean, I know they had some students, like maybe they have some slot car classes or something in conjunction with maybe local schools or something. And they have like a youth program. So the flat track will probably be better suited to the students than the King track was. But yep, the King track is gone and the flat track is in. So.
Yeah, because I think if you look in that picture, if it's the same one I looked at, it's like they had the King track kind of disassembled in the background.
Yep, over stacked up against the other walls. So, yep. I think Giannis is the one who's going to wrap it and load it on the sea container. So it should be done right.
Yeah, pretty sure he has all that stuff down to an art by now with all the tracks he shipped and moved and everything else.
Correct. So, there we have it. So, a couple of topics. So I'm going to ask you, Shane, this came up on Facebook today. I don't know if you've seen it or not. So my question to you, and the question there was, is slot cars a hobby sport or something else?
I've seen it.
Okay.
I think we've covered it before.
Well, yeah, we've talked about it before.
We've covered it in a show, and I think like our overall consensus of it is it just depends on how you look at it and how you do it. Because there's some guys that look at it as a sport. They're competitive. They want to take it to the extreme. And then there's other guys that enjoy it as a hobby and the camaraderie or whatnot and everything else. And it's just solely a hobby to them.
Well, it kind of depends on your definition of a sport, I guess.
Yeah, because I think we covered that also.
I mean, if you look at the definition of sport, it's an activity involving physical exertion and skill, individual or skill, or individual or team against, either it can be an individual against another individual, or it can be teams against teams. So, I mean, you can also engage oneself, or play in a lively, energetic way. So I guess if you went by that definition, some slot races could be considered a sport. I guess team races could be. But there, I mean, you know, people don't think there's physical exertion in slot racing. I mean,
doing enduro.
Yeah, we'll stand in a building that's, 80 or 90 degrees and do an enduro or even do a regular race. And then, it's a lot of physical exertion to go pit your car. And, in the old days of wing racing, I mean, you had to, go pit your car, glue your lane, you're running around for 2 to 3 minutes to do all that and back to the panel and race again. So I don't think all sports is where you. Some sports you don't have much physical exertion. I mean, they'll tell you that throwing darts is a sport, but that's not real physical. I mean, you're just kind of throwing a dart. Yeah, it's more mental for sure, but you're throwing this dart that doesn't take a lot of physical exertion. And I can kind of compare that to, like, using your finger to drive your slot cars. So, hobby is an activity where one regular activity is where you would do something in your own leisure time for pleasure. And again, slot racing is a hobby for a lot of people, or some people. But when you come to competition, that's the activity of competing event or contest, and people are competing against one another. So when we slot race, we're competing against other people. So, I mean, I guess there's two definitions for slot racing. Like, you can go out there and race yourself against a clock, and that would be racing. But that's not, to me, like a sport per se. That's more going out there by yourself. But when you get 8 guys on a track, now you're seriously competing. And I think like I said before, I think when you get into your automobile and you drive 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to go race with a bunch of other guys, that's definitely a competition, and that's a sport. But do sports have to be competitive? I mean, while sports frequently require a mental aspect, virtually everything does. And then having a physical skill doesn't make everything a sport. There has to be a competition to see who is a winner. If there is no competition, it is not a sport. So, there's some different definitions for the words themselves. But again, I think that for some people, slot racing is a hobby. And then, but for many,
one of those deals when I go and test and like practice,
right?
And that's more the hobby side of it. It's more kind of relaxed. Really no deadline. Oh, I got to, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just fun. You're trying stuff. But then, like, 2 weeks past that, it's race time, and that's whenever it comes to sport, because then you kind of get competitive. Right.
I mean, you think about a lot of sports. Like, what's the sport where they slide the stone down the ice?
Not crochet, is it?
No, they have the brooms, and they sweep the ice.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it either. But, I mean, that's an Olympic sport. Okay, so is standing down there with your broom and sweeping back and forth real fast or medium speed, I mean, yeah, it's physical, but is that physical exertion? Like, I don't think. Curling, there you go. I
just Googled it.
Okay, so I don't.
I was like, I got to figure this out.
So I don't think that you have to sweat and be all tired and worn out and out of breath for a sport to be a sport. There's so many different sports or things that are considered sports. So yeah, I think that if you're getting in a car and you're driving lots of places or far places to go and race against other people, it's a competition that makes it a sport.
Right.
I don't look at myself as this like sports person because I go and race slot cars, but I think when it comes down to, is it a hobby, is it a sport? It's both, but it's how you do it.
Right. Yeah, because it'd be like, I'd drive 4.5 hours to go hang out with my friends, and
I mean,
it's just a hobby. And it's like, why you can't find something to do closer as a hobby,
Right. I mean, slot car racing can be. I mean, there's a lot of guys that just build stuff and they don't race, so that's a hobby. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the way I see it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You know what I'm saying? But if they were to go race in a competitive environment, then to me it becomes a sport. I don't look at it as a sport. It's slot racing. You know, it's like people say, well, slot racing shouldn't be about the racing. Well, it's called slot car racing. It's not called slot car puttering or slot car driving. It's racing. That's what we do. That's what makes slot cars stick around, because there's a lot of guys that want to go race against other guys, and they want to, you know, build faster cars than their competition, or, you know, that's the name of the game. You know, we're all going to the race to win. And like I always say, everybody wants to beat me, and I want to beat everybody. So
that's like me and you back when we were racing more so together. You no sooner walked in the front door, and it was like, all right, I got to pick up a 10th now. And then when we were qualifying, we would always go back and forth, you know, about who's going to out-qualify who. You know?
Right. Yep.
And I mean, some people kind of looked at us like, you know, are they out for one another or what? It was just really just us having fun.
You're right. Just a friendly competition.
Yeah. You know?
I mean, nobody packed up and went home because the other guy was faster.
No. And generally that night, you know, having dinner, having a couple of adult beverages, we were still talking trash to one another.
Sure. Well, that's part of the fun of it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's all good fun. So then, not to change subjects, but to change subjects. So I got a gentleman he's actually sent me 3 questions in the past month or two, and I just haven't got around to them, but I thought we can talk about this tonight. So one of his questions was, could we cover a racing class for road courses, flat and banked, that could be raced anywhere in the USA? The local track here is jacked, 5/8 fronts, 4-inch stamp chassis, GTE1 bodies, sealed 16D motor. The market has changed. So, yeah, we could cover a lot of classes. I mean, there's a lot of classes already in rule books that's raced everywhere. And they get changed in regions and local tracks to what the market is there, I guess, or what the track owner wishes to sell or promote or whatever. So, I mean, obviously he races a track and they're running some archaic rules. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you can get all the parts to build cars to race to those rules. Now, you know, he could run, I mean, okay, you could look at the FNRS rules, pick a class. You could look at USRA rules, pick a class. You could look at East Coast Flexi Series rules, pick a class, Ohio Challenge Cup rules, Mid-South. I mean, the list goes on and on. You could pick a class from any of these rule sets. But even with that said, all those groups, we don't have a class that's identical rules in all those groups.
Right.
You can take a car you race over here, maybe make a body change, now you're legal over here. Or maybe you got to change
make a motor change.
Right. Or maybe you got to change the motor and body. I think the common denominator nowadays is 4-inch stamp chassis, no front wheels, and then you pick the body, pick the motor. So, but at the same time, yeah, I can suggest, you know, probably 90 different things, but the problem is convincing your raceway owner to running the class or running a class similar and are replacing the class they already have. So, you know, then the next question is, okay, so if you change it to a new class, how many people that like it the way it is get pissed and don't race? Or then on the other hand, if we change this, are we going to gain new racers? So, in usually most cases, the local crowd doesn't change much just because you change rules to something different or something that's being raced elsewhere. I think raceways that run stuff that's similar to groups in their area, I think that helps the raceway and it helps the group. But then again, that helps the local racers, because if they want to go race the big race somewhere, then they're close to doing that with maybe minimal changes to go run that race.
Right.
So, and then you got places that these are our rules, and if you don't like it, don't come race, because some places don't really want hot dogs coming in from somewhere else and playing by their rules and beating up on the locals too. So again, I guess my suggestion is there's all kinds of classes out there that you can pick from. I noticed that you've probably seen this too. Somewhere they started racing down in Atlanta Slot Car Race where they run in a JK21 spec class.
Yeah, right out of the box.
Right out of the box. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I've said on the show before, I think that all raceways should have a spec class based on a ready-to-run car as it comes out of the box. You know, like.
But I know, like, some raceways have, like, rental car races.
Right. See, my thing with rental car races, that was always to try and get new people to come in the door to come in and race and try it.
Right.
And they don't have to spend any money other than a $10 or $20, I guess, rental fee for the car and controller and the time to race. And hopefully they have a lot of fun. They want to come back the next week, and they want to come back. And then it's like, okay, what else do you guys race? I want to buy cars and stuff.
Right.
Again, how well that works is dependent on how well it's promoted.
Right.
So, and again, if you've had a raceway that's open, you know, for more than a year, you know, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, new people coming off the street are not going to win instantly, because they have to get the experience that all the guys that have been racing and still race, all that experience they have. So the key is if you get them in, you gotta kind of help them, teach them, learn them, and then hopefully they stick around. I would say that a high percentage of those people don't stick around very long. So, especially kids, if they can't win right away, there's no reset button. You got to tough it out. You got to tough it out. So, again, print off some rules from all the different things and try and pick a class that'll work, and see if you can get the race winner convinced to do it.
Right. Yeah, because it seems like every series has at least one class that's kind of fitting, you know?
Right. Right.
And then you kind of get into the more expensive side of racing, and then you kind of have the cheaper side of racing.
Right.
You know?
I think LMP is probably the most common class based on rules, because most places that run LMP or GT1, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
4-inch chassis, GT1 or LMP body, or maybe both. And then it's usually either a Pro Sled FK motor or a Hawk 7 motor.
Right. Or even the Eagle.
Or Mid-America Eagle motor. So again, LMP is probably the most generic, if you will, class out there right now.
Right.
So
yeah, because you like with Mid-South, we have the rules set up for Mid-South is like my 4-inch NASCAR that I raced one with. I took the NASCAR body off of it, cleaned it up. I ran a Scorpion.
Change motors.
4-inch NASCAR. I changed it to an FK motor because I had an FK motor that sounded good. So I was like, I'm going to try this. Just fresh motor, you know what I mean?
Right.
Same chassis. Changed the brake, changed the motor, put a different body on it. I'm racing again.
Right.
But technically, I could have probably just changed the body.
Right.
And changed the brake and then been just as good in tires, because tires didn't tech, you know. But I mean, other than that, that was it.
Yep. Okay, so the second question was, have you ever thought of doing a bar rescue themed show on raceways to save them or be more successful? So, no, I never thought about that.
They early, whenever I think I first started coming on to the shows, I remember we did a show about like advertising and different techniques and ways to get your business promoted out there, as far as
right,
going to the malls and movie theaters, putting flyers in any people's
right,
windshield wipers, and then
right,
finding your local Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts, or whatnot.
right. I mean,
I'm kind of like you as far as going in somewhere. Some people just don't want to be told,
well, right. I mean, you can't walk in a guy's business and just tell him what he needs to be doing. I mean, you can, but you might get thrown out the door, or you might make an enemy. But I think most raceways get a lot. Well, I don't know how it is today, but years ago, when raceways had questions or problems, they would talk to their distributors about it. Or, like when I worked at Parma, we get raceways that would call and ask questions and stuff. Maybe not so much on how to be more successful, but they would have questions that would be answered. And I think that, there's tons of information online today in the past several years than there was ever out there before. And I think the only way you can make raceways more successful is to get more people in the doors to the raceways.
Or have other options of income to help the raceway.
Right. Are you a raceway in a hobby shop, or you've got a second thing going on there. So
online store or something.
Yep. Mail order online store, RC cars, hobby shop. I think that raceway owners would have to look at the other raceways around them and maybe further away. And that would be like a kind of a good study. Like, let's say there's 150 raceways out there, commercial raceways. How many of them have a second line, or, what I'm saying? Like, they do something other than slot cars. Right.
Or whatnot.
Right. Turn and Burn's a good example. They have slots and they have the RCs now.
Right.
How many raceways are just standalone slot car raceways only versus how many are slot cars and something else? And it'd be interesting.
And then outside of the slot car thing, he's also got the car dealership.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying the same thing in the same building to bring
Some
people in.
People are just slot. I guess with Mark's Model World, for instance, he's just slot cars, right?
Right. I know that years ago up in Detroit, you had Family Hobbies and Cones, and it was a slot car track with ice cream. Okay. So.
Oh God, I would.
Okay, so people would come in for ice cream, and a lot of people probably got exposed to a slot car track and slot cars. But I don't think that the ice cream store made the raceway more successful.
Years ago, whenever the local track here closed down, I always heard about the track up at Myrtle Beach, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from me.
Right.
And I'm just going off of what I heard, but they said that it was like a slot car track inside of a big game room.
Right.
And then on the outside of it, it was like 3 or 4 like go-kart tracks. It was like an amusement park.
Right. Yep.
So like to get to the go-karts, to the game rooms and all that, you kind of had to walk by the slot car stuff.
Right. Right. And
whatnot.
See that? Yeah. That brings up another one. Like, I've seen operations like that, but sad to say, usually the first thing to go to make room for something else is the slot car track.
Because it's like, well, the slot car track's taking up 60 spaces of video games,
But see, most of those places, I've seen slot car tracks in flea markets. Those are more like for amusement. And well, that's good for the slot car racing industry, maybe the manufacturers and distributors, because they're selling parts to those places. Those places are exposing people to slot cars. That's good. But not that many people get involved because they're going there just to do some leisurely, activity and they're not looking for something, a new hobby or something to do per se.
Right.
They're going there to check out other stuff.
The other cool thing that I've seen was the same track in Myrtle Beach whenever I started racing there. He put it inside of a mall. Well, that mall at the time was a very, I guess, frequent mall. A lot of people went there.
Right.
You know? And I mean, we used to go up there just on Saturdays just to kind of hang out and race. Or not even race. We were just going up there to hang out and practice and play.
Right.
And there'd be like 20 or 30 of us there. And the track owner would be like, hey, y'all want to throw a race together later on this afternoon? Because there were so many of us there.
Right.
And then there was constant people walking by and all that, just mall traffic.
So when I was 6 or 7 years old, my first exposure to slot cars was a hobby shop. So, but see, I was into trains. So, you know, we begged one of the moms to drive 3 or 4 of us down to this hobby shop that we'd never been into. And she drove us down there. It was a weekday in the middle of the afternoon, you know, 2, 3 o'clock or something. Drove us down. She dropped us off. We went in the hobby shop. I'm looking at trains. One of my buddies looking at models. I was looking at models too because I liked models too then.
Yeah, and I was real big into models.
And in the back there was a slot car track, and there's 3 or 4 guys back there running on a slot car track. And kind of went over and looked at it. Didn't know really what it was. Didn't understand it. And, you know, probably looked at it for probably less than a minute. Turned around and went back to looking at trains. So I had no interest in it. So, and then, like I said, I was 6 or 7. And then, you know, it was 18 is when I seen it again. And then because I was into real racing, and this was like, wow, this is racing too, but on a littler scale.
Right.
You know, my buddy told me, don't do it because the racing bug will bite you and then you'll be hooked. And he was right. So, you know.
That's kind of what happened to me is not even 2 miles at most up the road, there's a shopping center. And then I noticed there used to be an old Dosher's grocery store there. It had newspaper all on the windows. And I was like, you know, what is that? And then one day coming home with Dad, it was open and it had J&MRC Hobbies on the side of it. And I was like, hey, let's check that place out. And I just remember walking in. They had a huge concrete oval track, slot car track was right there, you know, and just walking around and kind of like you, I was into model cars, so they had model cars, and I was looking at those, and then I seen the slot cars and the RC cars, and I was just like, yeah. And I think we went up there again the following week and actually rented a car, and then just like from there on out, I've been hooked since. Yep.
Because I can remember playing with HO cars probably when I was 12 or 13, friend's house.
Well, I always did that, but I never knew it was a bigger scale.
But that I didn't like the HO racing. I don't know why. I don't know. We set the track up, played on it a couple days, took it down, never set it back up again. But
Randy had his track set up at the old build, and honestly, when Randy had the HO track set up at the old build, I wouldn't say I got into it, but honestly, to be truthful with you, like some of the classes they had,
right,
I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Right.
You know, then it was like, I'm not dumping a bunch of money into these things because I got thousands of dollars in slot car stuff as it is now. The next thing I need to get to HO stuff, you know?
Right. And being a child of the 60s and 70s, you know, every year we'd get that Sears Christmas catalog in the mail.
Right.
J.C. Penney's and some of the other bigger stores. But, you know, I remember, you know, spending hours looking at the toy section of the catalog, of course. And,
right.
But, you know, HO cars never appealed to me. Like, I didn't know that they were slot cars. You know, it was just like, these are HO cars. They didn't call them slot cars. So, again, even that, with that said, HO cars did not appeal to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I was more into trains, but then again I didn't have, you know, I always wanted to set up this monster train thing and have all these trains, and the only trains I ever had was kind of a probably a 3-foot oval or something, you know, and a train.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that,
but like I had trains. It was always the same old Christmas train, you know.
right. So yeah, I never, and you know, again, so my hobbies would have been when I was, I mean, did some stamp collecting, coin collecting, did bikes.
I did the baseball cards collecting.
Yeah, I never got into that. But bicycles kind of became the big hobby, you know, as far as
I was into bikes,
fixing them and customizing them, or stuff like that. You know, making choppers out of them with extended front forks and different size wheels, and having a shifter, no shifter, stuff like that. So yeah, bicycles consumed a big portion. And then I guess we had board games. Again, just totally different era. I mean, we didn't have computers, we didn't have video games.
right? Yeah,
You had games that you basically had to play with someone else. The only thing, I shouldn't say the only thing. I mean, the big thing I remember that was a leisurely thing that you would do by yourself would maybe play solitary, with cards. So, or maybe, some kids had erector sets. They built cranes and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, HO track was no fun if it was just you.
right.
Same thing with even a home set slot car track. It's no fun unless it's somebody else. Hot Wheels was a big thing when I was, again, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Had tons of Hot Wheels, lots of track.
Yeah.
So
that was bicycles, and then I raced go-karts or whatnot, was into racing and stuff like that, and motorcycles, because Dad had the motorcycle dealership. So like you said,
right.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't at a racetrack. I was on the 4-wheeler running through the woods in our backyard.
Right. But if you look back to the 60s and all the tracks we had and all the different, I mean, you had tracks in hobby shops, you had them in bowling alleys, you had them in toy stores. I mean, you had tracks combined with almost anything and everything back then. The majority of them never survived. You know what I'm saying? Like either the whole thing shut down in a short time, or the slot tracks went away and they just became bigger hobby shops or bigger toy stores or whatever.
And
So
that's the thing, is ever since the slot car track here closed down in, I'd say, late 98, maybe 99 or so.
Yep.
And then the slot car track in Myrtle Beach, which is roughly an hour and a half, 2 hours away, there hasn't been another.
Hasn't been one ever since.
Slot car.
Right.
No.
Right.
And then there was like a big boom in upstate South Carolina where there were slot car tracks, and then even in North Carolina there was like a big boom.
Right.
There was a whole bunch of slot car tracks. And just as of here recently, other than actually upstate, I think some Spartanburg area or whatnot, there hasn't really been any new slot car tracks opened up around here lately.
Right. Well, I can remember going to California one time and there was 50-some tracks between NorCal and SoCal, but there's just a handful nowadays.
And they raced every day of the week, so it's like you can start here and travel this way and get a race every night.
Right. Right. All right. So, yeah, I mean, no, never thought about doing a bar rescue themed show. Just if raceways want to be more successful, there's plenty of people to ask questions.
Yeah, I don't want to be responsible or have responsibility of someone else's money.
But the big,
right, or retirement or whatnot,
Right, but the big thing is, in order to be more successful, you have to get more people in your door. So that's the first thing that you have to figure out. Is how you can get more people in your store. So now,
your store unique.
And the last question, tuning car performance. Compare Pro Slot 4002 FK or a Phoenix motor to a Group 12 motor that is tuned for the track. So I say start off with tuning car performance, but I guess I kind of look at this question two ways. One is, how do you tune the car for the different performance in motors? And then I think the other one is, what kind of performance difference is there between those? So okay, so like tuning the car. Let's just do tuning the car. So if I had a car that had a Pro Slot 4002 FK motor in it, and let's just say same chassis, same body, we're just going from Pro Slot 4002 FK motor to the Phoenix motor, which is faster. You're gonna want more downforce, and you're gonna need more traction because of the difference in horsepower. So you would tune it with body, or tune it with tires, or maybe a combination of both. And then if you go from that Phoenix motor to a Group 12 motor, it's along the same lines. It's probably gonna need more tire, meaning softer tire, more traction, and more downforce for the difference of weight in the motor. I haven't weighed the difference between a Phoenix and a C-can motor, but I know Pro Slot FK to a Group 12 motor, that's a tremendous difference in speed between those two motors.
So hang on, I could probably do that because I actually got one of each sitting out here on the
But I know the 4002 FK and a Group 12 motor pretty much weigh within a gram of one another, 22, 23 grams.
So I got just basically a Cahoza Group 12 motor. It's 22.4 grams.
Okay.
And then a Phoenix motor, 26.6 grams.
Oh, so the Phoenix motor is actually heavier.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that does make sense because all the metal in the can. Yep.
Right. Yeah, because all these setups that I have sitting out here, it's the lightweight Cahoza.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I don't have any other motors sitting out or I can weigh those.
Well, because I've weighed like say Hawk 7 to an FK Pro Slot 4002 FK motor, and the Hawk or the Hawk 7 motors weighs more because there's so much more metal in the can versus
and a thicker can and all that just to help with the magnetic field or whatnot.
Yep. So so you got the weight difference, and then again tuning them to the track with the different performance in the motors. Tires, body, maybe some lead, maybe a little weight, strategically placed somewhere. Can't tell you where because we don't know where the car is going to like it, or for the track conditions or the track. I mean, if I go,
put tape on a car, everyone seems to tape their car differently.
Right, you can tape it. Right, so I mean, if I put weight in a car, I try and put, I'll cut a square, weigh it, and then make another square the same size or similar weight, and then kind of put them on each pan, and try and center line of that weight, put it on the center line of that bite bar or the connecting tube or whatever, and see what the car's doing. And if the car's better, then maybe add a little more weight there and see if it gets better or slows down or gets worse. If I put the weight there and it's better but still not right, then maybe move the weight forward and take a couple laps. That make a difference. If that's worse, then move the weight further back. And then sometimes you don't want weight on your pans, you want on your center section. But that's testing and feel of the car. There's no set place to definitely put the lead, unless it's you go to that track all the time and it's just like lead works. Like if I went to your local track and you had your car super dialed in, and I said, okay, I'm going to put some weight in my car, where do I put it? You're going to say, put it right here where mine is.
Right.
Then I'm going to put it there. I'm going to go out and say, oh, this is better, or it's no better, or yeah, it's good, but I think I can make it a little better if I move some weight around based on prior experience of moving weight around. But, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So, again.
Yeah, the track that's in Turn and Burn, whenever they had it at Race City Raceway in Morrisville, I had 3 pieces of weight that I would always, that was back when we were running the Cheetah 11.
Right.
chassis and whatnot.
Right.
I cut 3 pieces of weight one time, just testing and practicing, and put it on the car. And I remembered how I did that. It seemed like every time I went to that track, if I had a Cheetah 11, and I took the same 3 pieces of weight and put it in those exact same spots.
Right.
You know, and back then we always ran treated JK tires.
Right.
The car always hooked up.
Right. Sounds like I'm right. That's like I'll take notes sometimes when I'm at the track and I'm trying different stuff, or I got multiple cars and it's like, okay, this car ran this fast and this car ran that fast, and I'll jot that down on some paper. But I'll do this from time to time. I will actually take pictures of my car on my cell phone.
Yeah.
And then I don't delete them. And then if I go back to a track, say I've raced there. So let's say I race somewhere this weekend. I got to weight my car or whatever. Totally dial in. I'll take a picture of it after the race is over for reference. So when I go back, because the next track I go to, I'm probably going to pull all the weight out of it and race the car with no weight or something. But then when I go back to the other track down the road, I can remember I added weight, but I don't remember where I added it. Scroll through the photos and say, "Ha, there's where I put the weight." So you can use your cell phone as a file cabinet.
Like me, this year I was like, I'm going to do better about taking notes, because my biggest thing is, and I know I've asked you, how many guide spaces do we run here?
Right. Yep.
Some people, I think you told me, well, I start at none and then go from there. And some people say, well, I always start at 10 and go lower or go higher,
Right. What was I going to say? Yeah, I just never could get into the whole taking notes thing. Now, there are times, that's what I was going to say. So there are times I'll go to a race, and let's say I'm racing 3 or 4 classes using the same controller, but I have different settings for brakes and sensitivity. Yeah. Like I'll take a photo, I hold the controller and I just, so when I go in the next day, I know where to set my controller for whatever class. You can write it down on paper, but it's just doing it on the phone is just quick. So yeah, I do that from time to time for sure.
I did that at Turn and Burn. We start off running 4-inch NASCAR, and then we run GTP.
Right.
My 4-inch NASCAR was already in tech, good to go, and I was like, I got some time, let me run my GTP. It's like, I don't want to mess with my controller.
Right.
And I was like, I'll just take a picture of it and I get it close.
Yep. Because I can always remember what chips I hit in for the different classes.
Right.
But I
hardly ever change the chips.
Well, I hardly do too, but there are times like with like a Hawk 7 motor, I'll run a lot slower chip than I would with like a ProSod FK or a Scorpion or something. Right. And with a Phoenix, I think I slow it down a little bit too, but.
Yeah, see, I thought about doing that this past week, because I normally run like a 148 chip, and I was like, I might put that 180 in it just to kind of slow it down a little bit on the bottom end, so it ain't too crazy. Yeah, see, usually I'm Mr. 78 with everything, and then like I said, with Hawk 7 or Mid America Eagle or Phoenix, I might go to a 113 or maybe a 136. Right. Hawk 7s are definitely for me a 148. Because they just spool up so quick. Right. So. Yep. So, and that's another thing too when it comes to car tuning. A lot of times, it's not so much the car that needs tuned. You need to change the sensitivity or figure your controller out. Right. That's the hardest. I don't say the hardest thing, but it's a big part of it. Well, me and Bobby, the last couple of races, me and Bobby has laughed because I bought a brand new DeFalco controller with the traction control on it and all that stuff. Right. And I've been racing with it, and I've been doing fair. You know what I mean? Right. I told Bobby, I was like, I'm going to go back to my old controller.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And he's like, why? And I'm like, the old controller had a better feel. It didn't seem to be as snappy and all that, and it just had less knobs for me to turn.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it's like, if he watches the show or hears this, or I might tell him, he'll probably laugh. You may even get a laugh out of it. But since I went back to my old controller, you know, I started back with my old controller when we went to Tennessee that weekend to test and race.
Right.
Well, I won GTP, and I finished third in NASCAR, so it's like, okay, you know. And then this past weekend was like the second race in Tennessee I've raced, and I've used that controller. And I mean, right out of the gate, I won 2 races back to back.
Right.
You know, and I told Bobby, I was like, I told you it's something about that controller that I like, you know?
Well, it's, yeah, I mean, the whole thing to a controller is just the feel of it. Not just your hand on the handle, but the feel of it when you're driving. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
That's the key. I mean, I've had controllers. Like, there was a time I kind of quit racing because I just couldn't find the right controller. I mean, I had like 3 or 4 different controllers, but it got to a point where like none of these controllers feel right.
Right.
And I just quit racing, and I would even try other people's controllers, saying, well, maybe if I buy that brand or this type. It's like that was
my problem.
Didn't have the feel.
Like I would try their controller, and it would be like Toys R Us brand. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, well, I need a Toys R Us controller. Get one, try it, and it's like it doesn't feel the same.
Oh, I know.
You know?
I tried a controller one time, and Randy's like, "Yep, Monday, get 2 of those controllers," and we got them.
Yeah, I remember the story.
And we hated it. We hated them. They were nothing.
Yeah.
Felt nothing like. Yeah, it was wow.
Yeah.
Yep. Sold in a short order of time. Nothing wrong.
I mean, that's just like my DeFalco right now that I have. Bobby's like, well, what are you going to do with it? And I was like, you want it? He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, here's your price. It's yours. And see, you know, I'm not going to sell it to anyone else. You want it, you know?
Right.
And he's like, well, what are you going to do when I buy it? Like, I'm probably going to try and buy another one of like what I got that I've been using.
Right.
Either that or I still have my old trusty rusty. This controller's literally been on fire before.
Well, and that's another thing. That's another thing too. It's hard to get 2 controllers that feel the same, like your backup controller.
Right.
I've been kind of fortunate. I've got 2 controllers right now that I could race either one and do. I mean,
that's how I am with this DeFalco and then my old Reddick controller. So I raced numerous races with that Reddick controller. And I remember one time Bobby, he brings it to me. He was like, hey, I just had to put your controller out. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it was on fire. I'm like, it was what? And he was like, dude, it was on fire. Yep. I'm like, oh, great. And I'm thinking it shot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I guess where the brake pop was, I had it rested up against one of the power terminals.
Yep.
And he said it was glowing red. The handle was melted. He was like, yeah, he was like, it was like literally on fire. So let it cool off and kind of cleaned it up where smoke residue was on it and all that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Checked the fuses. The fuses never blew or anything like that. I hooked it back up, stuck the car on it before I let the tires touch to make sure it wasn't wide open. It's like, all right, well, it ain't wide open. And yeah, it's like nothing ever happened.
Worked fine.
I ordered a new handle for it. And it was like, all right, if you look at the chip or the board on it or whatever you want to call it, you can see where there's still like some black residue from just the smoke, I guess, or whatnot.
Right.
We always laugh about it. I tell people, I was like, yeah, this controller's literally been on fire. And they're thinking, oh, ha, 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 you know. And I'm like, no, seriously, it's been on fire.
Right,
you know?
right. So. All right. Well, I got nothing else.
No?
Nope.
Getting ready for some, I know we were talking pre-show. I got some race. I called it the what did I call it? The Ron Hirschman schedule, because it was like I got a race, then a week off, then 2 races, then a week off, then another race, then 3 weeks off. I'm kind of getting ready for a marathon here.
I hear you.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, you know, everyone stays healthy and things stay healthy and these races can happen or whatnot.
Right, right.
So,
yep. Yeah, signups are still up for the Flexi-Palooza if anybody wants to go. I guess, you know, it's on for September 19th.
The 19th, yeah.
Yeah, and then pretty soon signups should start for the Flexi Flats, which will be in November. So
That'll be in Pennsylvania.
that'll be in Pennsylvania, Washington Slot Car Club. And they're actually going to have some warm-up races. They posted
Yeah, I
that.
think we were just posting about that. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, all right, where can I fit my already busy schedule to get
Yeah,
to
right.
Pennsylvania, you know?
Yep. So,
So,
yep. But that's all I got. And I guess until next episode, number 152, Shane's going to tell us what the word of the show is.
for some reason,
Uh-oh.
I don't know why, but I knew this was coming, so I started thinking, and I just like bar rescue.
Bar rescue. There you go. That's the word of the
I
show.
don't know why. It was just kind of like, oh, bar rescue.
Bar rescue. Well, see, the thing with bar rescue is I don't really know how basically the bar owner gets a hold of the producer of the show and says, hey, we'd like to be on your
Have you ever
show.
watched that show before?
I've watched some clips up. I've watched some clips on YouTube.
I love that guy because he's a New Yorker. And
Right.
He's just rude, arrogant. It's
Right.
just like, wow.
Right.
He ain't afraid to get in your face. It's just like,
But see, those are shows. I mean, that's a deal where they go to them and say, we need your help. Okay.
Right.
And then I'm sure that there's some TV money involved to the bar owners. But yeah, I mean.
And then he shows up and like halfway through the show, it's like, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Like, I'll leave. You
Right.
know?
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I don't see that really working for slot racing, but
That and Hell's Kitchen. I don't know what it is about those guys, but I love watching those shows.
Yep. All right. So until next week, episode 152. Words of the show is bar rescue. Thank you for that, Shane. And if you're going racing between now and the next show, good luck, be safe, win. If not, do your best, and we will see you episode number 152, and we are out.
See you later.